Story 1. Hello, I've been taking 2 to 3 hour walks alone during the early morning hours for many years, accumulating probably thousands of hours in total. My reason for these nightly walks no longer exists, so I've decided to stop. I plan to share some of my experiences in a thread, starting with a recent event from a few days ago. I was heading down a path leading to the entrance of a forest. As I approached, I noticed a flashlight moving along the path inside the forest, seemingly searching for something. I chose to wait by the entrance until the person with the flashlight passed. As they got nearer, I could hear a man's voice, presumably talking to someone on the phone. Despite the loud music I was listening to, nothing seemed unusual until, instead of walking past me, he stopped about 4 feet away. It was too dark to see clearly, but I could make out his silhouette and a large German shepherd on a leash. He continued talking, not directly trying to get my attention. I decided to head into the forest, but then I heard him shouting. I removed an earbud and realized he was calling out to me, saying something along the lines of, "It's the police. Take your earphones out and stop walking away." Realizing he had been trying to get my attention the whole time, I turned around, apologized, and answered his questions about my presence there. He explained he was looking for someone, and seeing that I wasn't the person, asked if I had seen a girl around. I hadn't, so after our exchange, he went back into the woods. I walked away and went home after the encounter. It wasn't the most unsettling experience I've had, but it left me with questions. Why was he looking for a girl alone in the dark? And if he was searching for an armed criminal, my ignoring him and walking away could have ended badly. I'm just grateful he remained calm, although I'm not entirely sure he was a police officer. He claimed he was, but I didn't see a uniform, and it was quite dark. I haven't seen anything about it in the news. I just hope the girl he was looking for is okay. My other story is scarier yet less clear. It happened about a year ago in a local park. Despite its reputation for being a rough spot, my many hours walking there have always felt safe, except for this one time. It was 2 a.m., pitch black, and I could barely see beyond a few feet. The only light came from distant street lamps. Standing inside the park, music playing through my earphones, I thought I saw movement far ahead. Focusing, I realized it wasn't in the distance but only about 10 feet away. That moment of realization was intensely shocking, like something out of a horror movie. My heart raced, and I immediately ran back towards the entrance. Shaken, I started walking home, passing well-lit, affluent houses, which felt safer. However, when I looked back, I saw a hooded figure, the kind you'd call a stereotypical roadman here, emerging from the same park entrance and turning in my direction, maintaining the same distance between us. When I started to leave, I noticed the same man was about 10 to 15 feet behind me. It didn't seem threatening, but I decided to be cautious and increased my pace. The street stretches for about 200 feet until it meets the main road. Halfway there, I looked back to see the man was still directly behind me, maintaining the same 10-foot distance. This struck me as odd because I was walking quite fast, yet he kept up. So I sped up to the fastest walk I could manage, keeping this pace for another 100 feet or so until reaching the main road. Upon turning around, the man was now only about 5 feet away from me, closer than before, which was unnerving. At that point, I ran all the way home, barefoot in my sliders, without looking back until I reached my front door. I never saw him again. It might have been a coincidence, perhaps just another late-night walker, but it also could have been a close call with danger. If something had happened, I might have been sharing this story on a completely different forum. Story 2. Over 30 years ago, I had an experience filled with fear that remains vivid to this day. I was a college student, a woman taking an outdoor survival course. The final challenge was a 3-day, 3-night wilderness solo. We were allowed a backpack, an empty canteen, sleeping bag, knife, 6 matches, a rope, a plastic sheet, a change of clothes, extra socks, water purification tablets, a small cooking pot, and a spoon. No food or water was permitted, as part of our training involved identifying edible plants and finding water. After being dropped off, I had to hike to find a campsite. The first task was to place a flag on a tree near my drop-off point for my eventual pickup. I was thrilled, fully immersing myself in nature without a hint of fear, even as night approached. The sounds of the forest were comforting, and not having a tent didn't bother me. I built a small fire and felt a profound sense of peace, sleeping soundly through the night. The next morning, I woke up thirsty and set out to find a water source. I found a muddy stream, let the water settle in my pot, added the tablets, and boiled it to make it safe to drink. The taste wasn't great, but it was hydrating. Everything went smoothly, and I enjoyed my time until the afternoon of the last day when it was time to pack up. After cleaning my camp area, I hiked back to my drop-off spot and leaned against a tree to wait for my pickup. Hearing a vehicle in the distance, I assumed it was my ride. However, a vehicle I didn't recognize pulled up on the dirt path in front of me. The driver was a man I didn't know, giving me an unsettling look that immediately made me realize the situation could be dangerous. My instinct immediately told me that the man was trouble. He questioned me about my presence and whether I was alone. I lied, saying my friends were nearby, packing up. He seemed to see through my lie, but then he left. My relief was short-lived. I heard his car return. Terrified, I ran into the woods to hide. As I concealed myself, I could hear him exiting his vehicle, calling out and searching the brush for me. The fear was overwhelming, but eventually he gave up, the sound of his car fading into the distance. Returning to my drop-off point was no longer safe, so I ventured through the woods, aiming to find the base camp. After what felt like an eternity, I encountered a forest ranger and explained my situation. He informed me that my actions were justified, especially since there had been an incident with a young woman the night before, and authorities were searching for this man. The ranger kindly drove me to the base camp, where I discovered another classmate had a similar unnerving encounter but had managed to deter the man with a brass whistle until help arrived. The takeaway from this harrowing experience is the importance of trusting your instincts, and I have since never camped alone. About a month and a half ago, I had another relevant experience. As part of my fitness routine, I work out 4 to 5 times a week at a small CrossFit gym. The warm-up often includes running outside, along a tree-lined street stretching for about a mile, a perfect setup for our exercises. Despite being a short, more full-figured woman, which doesn't align with conventional beauty standards, I felt this would make me less likely to attract unwanted attention. This assumption proved to be a false sense of security, underscoring that appearances don't safeguard against potential threats. I realized my assumption was incorrect when an unsettling experience happened to me at the gym. On a warm, sunny day, the workout plan included jogging down the road I mentioned earlier. Having run this route alone before, my main concern had typically been the weather, not safety. With my phone and headphones for company, I set out for my warm-up jog. Halfway to the road, a car passed me, slowed down to match my pace, honked several times to grab my attention, and the driver, offering a wide, unsettling grin, waved at me before driving off. Initially, I didn't think much of it, dismissing it as one of the occasional unsolicited interactions I face as a woman during outdoor exercises, so I just increased the volume of my music and continued on my way. However, my unease grew when, reaching the intersection to that road, I noticed the same car waiting at a red light. As soon as the light turned green, the car made a U-turn and came back in my direction, slowing down once more. The driver gave me that creepy grin again, looking me up and down in a way that made me feel exposed. My heart raced, but I tried to shrug off the fear, reminding myself it was broad daylight with other cars around, believing he wouldn't dare to do more. Despite trying to reassure myself, I couldn't shake off the discomfort as I turned onto the road and began jogging. It was disconcerting to realize the man had gone out of his way to return and look at me again. Attempting to maintain my focus, I concentrated on keeping my pace and breathing steady, using my music as a distraction. However, it wasn't long before I saw the same car again, this time on the opposite side of the road, slowing down beside me. This meant the driver had made another U-turn, crossed the intersection, and then turned to follow me in the same direction. The man looked at me with that unsettling grin, saying something I couldn't hear over my music, before speeding off again. At this point, my anxiety escalated. He had deliberately gone out of his way twice to follow me. I became acutely aware of my pounding heart as panic started to set in. Realizing I was just beginning my jog on a road with no buildings or places to hide, and completely alone, I feared he would attempt to pass by me again. Spotting another jogger ahead provided a glimmer of hope. Thinking he might be from my gym, I sped up to reach him, hoping for some semblance of safety in numbers. Despite not recognizing him and suspecting he wasn't a gym member, I was desperate not to be alone. After briefly interacting and learning he wasn't affiliated with my gym, I decided to immediately return there, unwilling to risk being alone on the road with the car following me. His intentions were unclear, but his menacing demeanor was enough for me to not want to find out. As I turned back, the car passed me again, confirming my suspicions that the driver had executed yet another U-turn to follow me, maintaining that creepy demeanor and gaze that made me feel exposed. This experience underscored the importance of vigilance and listening to one's instincts when feeling threatened or unsafe. As the man got closer, I glimpsed something in his lap that alarmed me further, propelling my jog into a run. He sped off, leaving me bordering on a panic attack, focused solely on reaching my gym safely. Despite the gym not being far, the fear of not being able to outrun a car overwhelmed me. In my panic, I turned off my music and called my best friend, who was studying overseas. It wasn't the most logical choice. I should have called the police, but in that moment I needed the comfort of a familiar voice. While waiting for her to answer, I approached the first intersection, and to my horror, I saw the car again, waiting for the green light. Once my friend picked up, her voice provided a slight relief amidst the terror. I tried to stay alert to my surroundings in the car as I explained the situation to her, gasping for air. As the light turned green, the car executed yet another U-turn. My friend's calm instructions to breathe were a small comfort as I neared the gym, now only 400 meters away. Every car that passed caused me to flinch, my nerves frayed from the ordeal. Nothing like this had ever happened to me before. With 50 meters left, a final burst of adrenaline propelled me faster. I reached the gym, burst through the doors, and was immediately enveloped in the familiar, safe space. My anxiety began to ease as the adrenaline faded, but the experience left a lasting impact, a stark reminder of the importance of safety and vigilance. After ending the call with my friend, intending to inform my coach about the harrowing experience, the overwhelming stress and fear culminated in a panic attack. I began hyperventilating, shaking so uncontrollably that I collapsed into a ball on the gym floor, sobbing without care for the onlookers. All I could do was try to convince myself that I was safe now and everything would be okay, promising myself never to venture down that road alone again. In a separate eerie incident in 2017, amidst news reports of individuals dressing as clowns and menacingly wielding knives at night, I was facing my own nocturnal challenges. As a 20-year-old dealing with the constant demands of a newborn, my nights were long and opportunities for fresh air were limited to moments like taking out the trash. One morning, while disposing of the trash next to my back door, I noticed footprints and hand impressions on the snow under my baby's room window. Although odd, it didn't immediately alarm me since my baby slept in my room. However, my boyfriend was deeply unsettled by this discovery. A few days later, around 3 a.m., I heard a sound that resembled more of a screeching howl than a scream. Assuming it was just the street cats, I ignored it. But by daylight, I observed several new sets of footprints that didn't seem to follow any logical path, merely traversing between houses. I dismissed this too, attributing it to the frequent foot traffic from people crossing our yard to reach the houses across the street, known for drug activity. Then, approximately 4 nights later, again around 3 a.m., another unsettling event occurred, reinforcing the need for vigilance and the unsettling reality that not all dangers are as easily dismissed or understood. While feeding my newborn late one night, I heard a dragging noise against the house. From my position on the couch, I could see the back door, which has a window covered by blinds and doesn't seal well because of a wood rod on the frame. I muted the TV, listening intently, and soon, directly at the back door, I saw the silhouette of someone standing at the window, brandishing a large kitchen knife. The figure traced the knife across the window panes before tapping softly on the glass. Frozen with a feeding baby and my phone out of reach in the bedroom, I hesitated to take my eyes off this ominous presence. Compelled by an instinct to protect without alarming my baby or the intruder, I stood and calmly walked into the kitchen, turning on the light. I addressed the figure with a composed lie. "Hey man, I've already called the police. You really don't want to deal with them, so why don't you go home?" Surprisingly, my calm demeanor seemed to catch him off guard. He paused, seemingly weighing his options, then suddenly turned and ran down the alleyway. Nothing similar ever happened again, but the event left my boyfriend frustrated that I hadn't woken him or actually called the police. Story 3. I recently started exploring Reddit and stumbled upon a subreddit that seemed like the perfect place to share a true story of mine. I occasionally dog sit for a family friend who prefers having someone stay at their house with the dogs. Having grown up in a rural town, I cherish the tranquility of the countryside, a welcome retreat from city life where moments of solitude are rare. Their home is exceptionally secluded, nestled in an area so remote that commuting to and from work takes 2 hours, and the nearest town or highway is about a 45-minute drive away. The nearest neighbor lives directly across the street, within a 5-mile radius, offering a semblance of comfort in knowing there's at least one person nearby. However, this neighbor, contrary to providing a sense of safety, has only contributed to my unease. Upon arriving at Terry and Johnny's place, they briefed me on the usual responsibilities: feeding the dogs, watering the plants, and so on. As they prepared to leave, Terry mentioned I should be informed about Steve, the neighbor across the street. John described Steve as harmless despite his odd behavior and frequent drinking, which has led to multiple revocations of his driver's license, leaving him with only a moped for transportation. Despite the laughter, the mood shifted as John showed me where they keep a loaded gun, just in case. Explaining its use was straightforward. Though the mention of a gun in a house so far from immediate police assistance was alarming, it didn't particularly worry me. My upbringing and experience with eccentric locals had prepared me for such situations. Moreover, the presence of 2 protective dogs, trained to respond to a single command, bolstered my sense of security in this isolated setting. Terry and Johnny departed around 3 p.m., and I spent some time walking and playing frisbee with the dogs before starting to unpack my things. As I went outside to retrieve more of my belongings, I heard the neighbor Steve abruptly exit his house, engaging in a seemingly heated phone conversation. His voice was faint, but then I heard him shout, "Where'd you effing go?" The dogs, alerted by the commotion, began to growl softly. I reassured them, "Calm down, boys. It's all right, just Steve, remember. He probably just wants some privacy. Let's go inside." As I continued gathering my things, Steve's voice escalated. I heard him yell, "I do care about my kids," followed by the sound of something hitting the unpaved road behind me, a cell phone. The dogs then became agitated and charged a few feet behind me, barking and growling aggressively. Dropping my belongings, I turned to see Steve at the end of the driveway, about 50 to 75 feet away, just staring. I managed to calm the dogs and ushered them inside, offering Steve a cautious wave, trying to maintain a friendly demeanor despite the situation's oddity and recalling Terry and Johnny's assurance that he was harmless. Steve, dressed in dirty jeans, work boots, a grimy red hoodie, and a red hat emblazoned with a Confederate flag, looked disheveled, with shoulder-length dirty brown hair and a long beard. He took a step forward and asked in a peculiar tone if I was all right. Introducing myself as Pip, dog sitting for the week, I attempted to convey I was fine and ready to settle in for the evening. The dog seemed on edge, a reaction I hadn't witnessed before. After introducing himself, there was a lingering silence, punctuated only by his repeated inquiry about my well-being. His insistence on checking if I was okay felt unnerving, amplified by the dog's unusual behavior and the tense silence that followed. The uncomfortable silence stretched for about a minute, convincing me Steve must be intoxicated. I decided to ignore him and finish unloading my things. As I did, I heard him take another step on the gravel driveway, prompting the dogs to bark once more. Steve remarked on the dogs' harmlessness toward him, praising them as damn good dogs, which only intensified my unease. After closing my trunk, I turned to face him again, intending to inform him that I was heading inside. However, before I could finish my sentence, he interrupted with a loud, "Yeah." What surprised by his aggression, I quickly said I was going inside, thanked him for checking on me, and hastily retreated with the dogs following. Steve remained outside, eerily staring at the house for an extended period. Notably, the house's layout, with its main entrance at the back and obscured front due to privacy trees, meant that Steve's presence on the property was more intrusive than it might have been otherwise. Around 6 p.m., as dusk began to settle in a time when it wasn't yet dark during the summer months, I was inside playing Red Dead Redemption 2 with my gaming headphones on. Suddenly, the dogs erupted into a frenzy, charging toward the back door, barking and growling as if someone unknown had arrived by car, an unusual behavior for them unless a stranger approached. Concerned, I grabbed my knife, always kept nearby, and cautiously approached the back door. Though initially seeing nothing, a closer inspection revealed the taillights of a moped, cunningly obscured behind my car. It became clear that Steve, inexplicably, had returned and was now lurking at the back of the house, using my car for cover. I managed to quiet the dogs and watched from a hidden vantage point, trying to discern his intentions, all while the dogs maintained their low, threatening growls, signaling the tension and potential danger of the situation. Ensuring the dogs were quiet enough not to reveal my presence, I observed Steve for several minutes. He remained motionless, his gaze unnervingly fixed in my general direction. Although it seemed unlikely he could see me, his actions were unsettling. Eventually, he turned off his moped and began inspecting my car, peeking through the windows without attempting to break in. He circled the vehicle, pausing frequently to look inside the car and then back at the house, moving in a deliberate, single-step manner that amplified the eeriness of his behavior. Feeling increasingly uneasy, I texted Terry to inform her about Steve's strange actions, expressing my growing discomfort. Terry's response suggested calling the police if I felt unsafe, mentioning that local law enforcement was familiar with Steve and could intervene. She also hinted at a past incident involving Steve that seemed alarming, suggesting he might have experienced a psychotic break, which did little to ease my concerns. Despite trying to reassure myself that Steve was simply intoxicated, I resolved to call the police if he approached the door, although I was acutely aware of the significant response time due to our remote location. Eventually, after a second inspection of my car, Steve mounted his moped and drove off, accelerating past the window facing the driveway as if to avoid detection by someone casually inside. By 8 p.m., the situation escalated as the dogs became agitated once more. Looking outside, I saw Steve's moped parked conspicuously nearby, with him standing on the walkway only 30 feet from the house, staring and muttering to himself. This direct and unsettling proximity, coupled with his bizarre behavior, underscored the potential threat he posed, making the isolation of the countryside feel not serene, but sinister. After dimming the lights to obscure my activities from Steve, I watched him edge closer to the door. With the gun in hand and the dogs positioned protectively by my side, the situation escalated. By 8:15 p.m., feeling threatened, I contacted the police. Midway through relaying my concerns and the homeowner's suspicions of Steve's mental state, the dispatcher requested my address again. Upon clarification, she informed me that I was outside their jurisdiction and needed to be transferred to the correct county, despite Steve residing within theirs. The subsequent conversation with the other county's dispatcher began as I silently observed Steve advancing further onto the property. After explaining the ordeal once more, the dispatcher advised turning on the lights for safety, contrary to my instincts to keep them off to avoid drawing attention. Reluctantly, I illuminated the house, which prompted Steve to notice, retreat to his moped, and return to his residence. I updated the dispatcher on the situation, insisting on law enforcement's presence given Steve's progressively invasive behavior and my growing fear for my safety. Despite the jurisdictional confusion and the promise of delayed assistance due to my remote location, I emphasized the necessity of police intervention. The assurance that officers would be dispatched provided some comfort, yet the reality of waiting in a vulnerable state underscored the dire nature of the situation. I expressed my gratitude to the dispatcher for sending an officer, though she couldn't stay on the line due to needing to be available for other emergencies. She reassured me to call back immediately if Steve returned, and I felt uneasy. It is 9 p.m. Approached and the sun began to set fully. The tension escalated with the dog's alarmed barking once again disrupting the precarious calm. Frustrated and on edge, I patrolled the house, gun in hand, hoping that if Steve saw me, the sight of the firearm might deter him. Peering out the window, I spotted his moped, but not him, adding to my unease. From the kitchen, I couldn't see the back door, so I ascended the stairs, with one of my dogs following while the other, due to age, remained below. From the vantage point of the bathroom window, I saw Steve on the back porch engaging in alarming behavior, lighting matches and tossing them onto the wooden surface. His actions, coupled with him seemingly talking to himself and making erratic movements, painted a picture far removed from harmlessness. In preparation for the worst, I began filming him, a precaution to leave evidence behind in the event of my demise. The intention was to hide my phone, ensuring that if something happened to me, there would be a record implicating Steve. The atmosphere grew increasingly menacing as darkness enveloped the house, and Steve escalated his actions from knocking to violently pounding on the door. Despite typically maintaining composure in stressful situations, the intensity of the moment caused my heart rate to surge, a physiological response mirrored by the rapid updates on my Fitbit. Faced with the possibility of a life-threatening confrontation, I was prepared to defend myself against Steve, whose intentions seemed increasingly malevolent. The tension climaxed when, after a final act of aggression, he abruptly ceased pounding on the door, raced to his moped, and sped away with unexpected urgency. Moments later, a police officer arrived, coinciding with Steve's departure. I had informed the dispatch operator about my dog's training and my possession of a firearm, ensuring the officer knew the dogs were safe and that I would secure the firearm before meeting him. The dogs alerted me to the officer's presence with a single bark each, signaling someone was outside. Upon meeting the officer, I relayed Steve's hasty exit and suggested the officer intercept him, suspecting intoxication or mental instability based on his erratic behavior. However, the officer's response seemed dismissive, questioning whether I intended to remain at the house. I decided not to stay overnight, opting to leave after ensuring the dogs were comfortable and secure, with the officer agreeing to stay while I gathered my belongings. Returning the next day with my father, we aimed to make Steve aware that a male presence was now on the property, possibly as a deterrent. Steve, still donning the same unkempt attire and holding beer, appeared at the driveway's end but retreated upon seeing my father. This encounter and subsequent information about Steve's history of domestic abuse and his estrangement from his children painted a picture of a deeply troubled individual, The mystery of his income and the consistent pattern of leaving only to return with alcohol added layers to his unsettling presence. Story 4. In 2009, I worked as a wildland firefighter and was part of an engine crew. Our team included me, a 20-year-old woman, 2 other firefighters corps, a 23-year-old man, and Amy, another 20-year-old woman, along with our captain and driver pump operator. That summer, we were assigned to manage a major fire in Los Angeles, specifically stationed in Glendale near some very large mansions. One day, a civilian approached us, claiming he spotted smoke in a nearby dried river. As the nearest engine crew, Corps Amy and I went to investigate, guided by the man who said he needed to grab his camelback, although he already had a large water jug. He led us to a ravine's edge, requiring us to rappel down into the river, about 15 feet below the banks, leaving us no choice but to walk a few miles to find a way out. Realizing the risk, we nonetheless proceeded. As we followed the man, we noticed his camelback lacked a hose and contained no water, yet he still carried the jug and a camera. He rambled about various topics until he mentioned I resembled his daughter's middle school friend, expressing a desire to take a photo of me. I suggested a group photo, but he insisted on only capturing the females, referring to us as the bunnies and hinting at his preference with a wink. Despite this, Corps ensured he was included in the photo and remained close by. Further down, we encountered a check dam, a structure in the flat river designed with a man-made cement waterfall and a ladder for descending to the next section. The man went ahead, followed by Amy, then me, and finally Corps. As we climbed down, the man inappropriately touched us, prompting a defensive reaction from us, nearly resulting in physical retaliation. Following the initial incident, Corey began taking precautions earlier than the rest of us. After the third dam, Corey initiated a conversation about our thoughts on this individual who persistently mentioned my resemblance to his daughter's friend and took numerous unplanned photos. We were uncertain of his intentions, especially regarding the contents of his bag. We strategized our walking formation based on strength and proximity to him, and devised an exit plan, considering our radios and cell phones were ineffective due to interference and the depth of our location. Upon reaching the 5th dam, the situation became more unsettling. We encountered a path division that resembled a reverse fork, and he suggested we explore a cave on the less intuitive path, insisting despite our hesitation. He mistakenly called me by another name and expressed a desire to photograph us in the cave, which we declined. Fortuitously, we intercepted a radio transmission from another team, which he was unaware of. Seizing this opportunity, we feigned a need to respond to an urgent call and hurried away. After a half-mile trek, we found a viable escape route. Although he followed, his persistence waned once our rescue team arrived, and he quickly departed. The entire experience was bizarre and leaves me pondering the potential outcomes had we not decided to leave when we did. Story 5. A few summers back, my girlfriend and I decided to camp in the Shaman National Forest in northern Wisconsin. Following our experience there, we've resolved only to return if we're part of a larger group. Coming from Chicago, northern Wisconsin was our usual retreat for some rest and relaxation. We've embarked on several hiking adventures in northern Wisconsin and the Upper Peninsula, though we had never visited this particular region. While we wouldn't call ourselves backpacking professionals, our experiences span various national parks, seizing any opportunity to explore nature amidst our busy work schedules. This trip, however, shifted our perspective on the solitude of nature, highlighting the value of having others nearby in unfamiliar settings. Our itinerary involved hiking to a secluded part of the North Country Trail, a national scenic route akin to the Appalachian Trail but less frequented in certain Wisconsin sections due to its remoteness and accessibility primarily through logging roads. Our plan was a 15-mile hike to a backcountry shelter for an overnight stay, followed by a return hike to our vehicle the next day. After spending a night at a friend's place in Wausau, we headed out early to the trailhead, entering the national forest boundary. The dense, green forest's beauty immediately captivated us as we navigated the gravel logging roads toward our starting point. En route to the trailhead, we encountered a few individuals standing beside a parked truck on the roadside, epitomizing the hillbilly stereotype with their rusted pickup adorned with a Confederate flag bumper sticker. As we passed by, I offered a friendly wave, but they merely stared back, offering no gesture in return. As we drove past them, I mused about the friendliness of the people we just encountered. Peering into the rearview mirror, I noticed they continued to fix their gaze on us until we disappeared around a bend. Another glance back confirmed they were still observing us through the settling road dust. My girlfriend and I made light-hearted comments about the locals, not letting the encounter dampen our spirits. Beyond this brief interaction, we didn't cross paths with anyone else on the secluded logging roads within the national forest's limits. We arrived at the trailhead around 15 minutes later, following the narrow logging road to our starting point. The parking area was deserted, presenting us with the perfect opportunity for the solitude, fresh air, and relaxation we craved. After parking and securing the car, we shouldered our backpacks and embarked on our hike. The cool weather was a blessing, keeping the mosquitoes and flies at a manageable level. We captured the journey in photographs, admiring the forest's dense greenery and the terrain shaped by glaciers. After about 8 hours of hiking, we reached our campsite, featuring a wooden backpacker's shelter and a fire ring. Despite the shelter's ample space, we preferred to set up our tent in a smaller clearing nearby. We used the fire ring at the shelter to light a fire and prepare our dehydrated meals. As we dined, we watched the sky transition to night and shared some wine, awestruck by the clarity of the stars far from city lights. When the fire dwindled to embers, we retired to our tent, flipping through the day's photos. The combination of the day's physical exertion and the wine made me eager for sleep. Unlike our stays in state and national parks, where I'd wear earplugs to block out human noises, the natural sounds of the forest lulled me into slumber. My girlfriend, however, felt restless and uneasy, which was not unusual for her in unfamiliar sleeping environments. I'm uncertain at what moment we fell asleep, but we were abruptly awakened by a chilling sound that pierced the dark night. Amidst the backdrop of insect noises, a dull, repetitive thud echoed, resembling the sound of logs being struck together. Both my girlfriend and I were instantly alert, lying in our tent, enveloped in silence except for the eerie noise outside. Our tent, designed for backpacking, lacked windows, leaving us to only imagine the source of the sounds in the darkness outside. Initially, we suspected an animal might have been tampering with our food or trash, which we had left in the shelter. However, the noise was too deliberate, not at all like the sound of something scavenging through our belongings. With our hearts racing and devoid of any means of defense, I had opted against bringing bear spray to lighten our load. Despite my girlfriend's advice, the knocking persisted. We remained motionless, hoping not to reveal our presence, though for all we knew, our tent might have already been spotted. After a tense period, the knocking finally stopped, leaving us in a suffocating silence, broken only by the soft buzz of insects. Then, another sound reached our ears, the rustling of leaves, the snap of a branch, and distant, murmured voices. Unable to discern the words, it seemed like a few people were conversing at a distance. Thankfully, the voices didn't grow louder, suggesting that they either hadn't seen our tent or chose to leave us be. We spent the rest of the night awake in our tent, adrenaline coursing through us. At the first hint of dawn, we cautiously exited the tent to inspect our surroundings, finding nothing but the forest and our belongings. We quickly packed up our sleeping gear and tent, eager to leave. Upon reaching the shelter, my girlfriend let out a scream of horror. Carved into the entrance of the shelter, the word "kill" was freshly etched into the wood, surrounded by numerous axe and knife marks as if someone had taken their anger out on the shelter walls. The ground was littered with fresh wood splinters. Hastily, we collected our food and trash, then quickly left the area. Our pace quickened to nearly a jog as we headed back towards our car, with me constantly looking back to ensure we weren't being followed. The familiar glacial eskers from the previous day signaled we were nearing our vehicle. Our spirits lifted slightly as the trailhead came into view, but that relief was short-lived. Arriving at the trailhead, we immediately noticed something amiss with my car. The windshield wiper was unnaturally positioned upright, with something grotesquely affixed to it. Upon closer inspection, we discovered blood smeared across the windshield and a squirrel carcass impaled on the wiper blade, its fur and blood mingling with the dust on the hood. Opting not to clean the mess right then, we hastily loaded our gear into the trunk and I drove away, leaving the grisly scene behind without removing the animal. As I navigated the gravel logging road away from the site, I periodically checked the rearview mirror, though the billowing road dust obscured any potential pursuit. It wasn't until we reached a gas station in the nearest town that I finally disposed of the carcass using newspaper and attempted to clean the dried blood as best as I could. We filled the gas tank and didn't stop again until we reached Milwaukee, marking the end of our last venture into the woods of northern Wisconsin. Story 6. When I was around 18 or 19 years old, living in California, an event occurred that I've never forgotten. Near my old home, there was a forest crisscrossed by a creek, a place my older brother's friends and I often explored. Our fascination mainly lay in discovering abandoned structures within its bounds. A particular draw was a storm drain that discharged into the creek, which had become our regular haunt. On this day, I was accompanied by 3 friends whom I'll refer to as N, J, and G for their privacy. There were 2 parking lots flanking the forest. J and G arrived together in one car, while N and I arrived in his. This detail plays a role in the unfolding events. We were leisurely making our way through the forest towards the storm drain, engaging in typical light-hearted antics. The drain's entrance featured 2 archways side by side, each about 9 feet tall, leading into tunnels with a steep incline and adorned with concrete pillars resembling an ancient temple, a sight we always found intriguing. The tunnels eventually merged into one, but on reaching the top, we found it flooded from recent rainfall, forcing us to retreat. Darkness had begun to envelop the forest, dimming the light at the entrance. N and G had surged ahead, leaving J and me trailing. Just as J and I neared the drain's entrance, N rushed back, his face tense, whispering about a man outside donning a monkey mask. Initially, the image seemed absurd, yet a wave of unease quickly overtook me. Following N's gesture, I saw a large figure in disheveled attire, a bicycle at his side, his head obscured by a monkey mask. All 4 of us stood frozen, observing the masked figure in silence. This encounter was entirely unexpected, particularly as it wasn't near Halloween, leaving us bewildered and on edge. We were puzzled by the sight of a man wearing a monkey mask alone in the forest, engaging in odd behavior. Observing from about 15 feet away, we watched as he collected items from the ground, placing them into a small sack, seemingly oblivious to our presence. The unease grew among us, leading J and G to decide it was time to head back to their car, their nerves frayed by the encounter. N and I, driven by a mix of curiosity and thrill, chose to stay behind, watching from a distance as we moved further up the hill to remain concealed. As dusk turned to almost complete darkness, the ambience of the forest shifted from merely odd to outright eerie, yet the unusual nature of the situation held a certain appeal. With J and G now out of sight, N and I lost track of the so-called monkey man. Then, the rustling of leaves drew our attention. He emerged abruptly from the bushes, pausing on the trail in a silent, unsettling standstill. His abrupt movements and peculiar behavior intensified our unease. When he resumed walking, heading in the same direction as J and G, We felt compelled to follow at a distance. The path wound uphill before descending, obscuring our view temporarily. Upon reaching the crest, we spotted him again, stationary and with his back to us, before he suddenly quickened his pace towards our friend's location. Reacting swiftly, we called J and G, urging them to hasten to their car and meet us at the other parking lot across the forest. Anne and I made our way through the now pitch-black woods, our paths illuminated only by the light of our phone flashlights. The silence of the night was shattered by eerie, loud noises mimicking ape calls, surrounding us from all directions. Some felt alarmingly close, yet no source was visible. Driven by fear and adrenaline, we ran towards the parking lot, the bizarre cacophony of screams and yells echoing around us. This intense rush of adrenaline propelled us through the darkness, hastening our escape to the safety of the parking lot. Upon reaching the parking lot, the unsettling yells abruptly ceased. J and G were already there, waiting for us. After climbing into the car, they drove us back to N's vehicle at the first parking area. From there, we all left the forest together, still trying to process the evening's bizarre events. The experience was difficult to comprehend, especially with rumors I'd heard about a secretive Buddhist temple hidden within the forest. Whether the temple or its occupants had any connection to the monkey noises or the masked figure remained speculative. The story, however, didn't end there. Later, one of my brother's friends recounted a night they spent in the same forest, which was interrupted by a police officer. The officer explained that the area was often patrolled due to teenagers using it for parties, but also mentioned that monks from the nearby temple were not fond of people trespassing in the forest, especially after dark. He even shared an encounter where he was sternly asked to leave by one of the monks who had spoken to him from the trees. Although this added a layer of credibility to the temple's existence, it also wrapped our experiences in more mystery. On a separate occasion, we experienced a rock being hurled at us from the shadows of the trees, thankfully missing everyone. This incident further amplified the forest's eerie atmosphere. Years later, curiosity drew Anne and me back to the forest. With the memory of the monkey man and the inexplicable yelling still fresh, we revisited the topic of the temple. Opting for a direct approach, we chose to investigate the temple, which was accessible via street, but far from our location. Our adventurous spirits led us to scale a steep hill for a quicker route. Once at the top, we remained concealed by the tree line, observing the temple grounds, which appeared deserted. With some doors open, we inferred the presence of people inside but kept our distance to avoid trespassing. As we were leaving, we noticed three individuals, a man, a woman, and their daughter, around 20 years old, approaching us. The encounter felt like yet another mysterious chapter in the forest's tale, linking back to the temple and the unusual occurrences we'd faced. The presence of the temple, combined with our experiences, painted a complex picture of the forest as a place of both intrigue and unease. The encounter with the family, claiming to be lost and seeking the parking lot, struck us as peculiar. Their emergence from a direction opposite to the parking area, and not along any known trail, added to the mystery. The temple grounds, expansive and open, offered no clue to their origin. Despite our confusion, we directed them towards the main road leading to the temple, which we explained would lead them to the parking area. They expressed their thanks and departed. Anna and I lingered briefly, pondering the oddity of someone getting lost in such a straightforward hiking area, but eventually attributed it to their possible inexperience. Deciding to leave, we headed towards the street that led to the parking lot, half expecting to cross paths with the family again. Yet, upon reaching the bottom, we found our way barred by a large gate, with no sign of the family. Circumventing the obstacle required navigating through the wooded terrain, filled with natural barriers. Surprisingly, upon reaching the parking lot, there was no evidence of the family's presence, not even a vehicle, despite their minimal head start and the physical challenges that should have delayed them, especially given their age. This experience in the forest, from the unsettling figure in the monkey mask to the mysterious family and the eerie noises, remains an enigma. The possible connections between the masked individual, the temple's monks, or even a cult remain speculative. The disappearing family only deepens the forest's mystique. These events are among the strangest I've encountered, leaving a lasting impression and a sense of nostalgia. The forest still calls to me, and I anticipate returning one day, possibly to uncover more layers of its mystery. Story 7. In my early 20s, I had a friend whose father was a problematic alcoholic. Though she had moved away, we occasionally visited him together, staying overnight. One night, following a heated argument fueled by alcohol, he expelled us from his home around midnight. Without a car and situated approximately 4 kilometers from town along a dirt road, we found ourselves walking back to seek help. This was during a time when owning a mobile phone wasn't the norm, so our plan was to use a public telephone to call my parents, who lived an hour and a half away, for assistance. Throughout our walk, my friend, deeply affected by alcohol and emotional turmoil, lamented the strained relationship with her father. By the time we reached the phone booth, her distress hadn't subsided. While she took a moment to sit down, I contacted my parents, who agreed to pick us up. As we waited, a van pulled up close to where we were seated, its occupants a group of young men casting unsettling glances our way. The van's side door slid open, revealing more individuals inside than just the 2 in the front, intensifying our sense of exposure in the deserted surroundings. No houses, people, or any sign of life were in sight, just the empty road stretching into the night. As tension mounted, I stood to better assess the situation, maintaining eye contact with the van's passengers. Their initial quiet murmurs evolved into louder, deliberate conversations, making it clear they wanted us to overhear their disturbing intentions of abducting and harming us. The fear I felt was overwhelming, manifesting as a physical tremor. Despite this terror, I couldn't divert my gaze from them, memorizing one of their faces with such detail it felt as though I could recreate it from memory. He was perched in the doorway of the van, his gaze fixed on me with an unsettling blankness, eyes devoid of emotion, reducing me to an object in his view. Amidst this, my friend continued her drunken sobbing, seemingly oblivious to the imminent threat nearby. Frozen by fear, I found myself unable to warn her or even move. In an extraordinary turn of events, her father, a man notorious for his stubbornness and inability to apologize, arrived seemingly out of nowhere. Despite their rocky relationship and his usual intransigence, he showed up drunk, offering an unlikely yet timely intervention. As they shared an emotional moment, I remained vigilant, watching the van whose occupants had now fallen silent, observing us. In the urging action, I prompted us to leave with her father. As we did, the van ignited its engine and began to tail us. Despite my attempts to explain the threat, her father suggested we slow down to let them pass. Instead, they reduced their speed, trailing us closely, shouting threats from their windows. They followed us all the way to her father's home, lingering ominously behind us in the driveway. With no neighbors around to offer assistance, the tension was palpable. Eventually, after what felt like an eternity, the van retreated and disappeared down the driveway. My parents, frantic with worry, arrived at the house after failing to find us at the predetermined meeting spot. In the aftermath, her father withdrew, burdened by guilt, while I returned to my family, profoundly affected by the ordeal. I've often been asked if I reported the incident to the police, but my memory of that time is hazy. I don't believe I did. That night altered me fundamentally, ingraining a deep-seated fear and overprotectiveness, especially towards my children. This shift in my demeanor, though born from a harrowing experience, is a choice to err on the side of caution, preferring it vastly over misplaced trust in a world that can harbor such menacing individuals. Story 8. When I was 7, my dad, older brother, and I, along with our cat, stayed at a secluded cabin for a week. My room, the furthest from the others and adjacent to the woods, had a window without curtains next to a tree I'd unsuccessfully tried to climb. One night, feeling homesick and reading comics by flashlight, I heard tapping on my window around 2 a.m. Initially, I dismissed it as wind-driven branches, but whispers soon shattered that notion. Voices coaxing, "Open up, son, it's Daddy. Let me in, Luke, it's cold out here." And chillingly, "Come on, it's Daddy. I just want to cuddle," froze me in fear. Terrified, I faced away from the window, my cat hissing and clawing defensively. Clinging to my cat for comfort, I was too scared to shout for my dad. The intruder's maniacal grin, visible as he dragged a pocket knife across the window, finally spurred me to scream. My dad rushed in with his hunting rifle, causing the man to flee, though he escaped with likely minor injuries due to the short fall from the second story. The rest of the night, no one slept. We left the next day after my dad filed a police report, and I provided a description of the intruder. The cat, my protector during that harrowing experience, turns 14 this week, still feisty and a constant comfort. Story 9. At 18 or 19, my friends and I went to Grant County, Washington for the Warped Tour at the Gorge Amphitheater, a venue quite isolated. After a long, enjoyable day, we left around 9 p.m., driving through a highway enveloped by forests, devoid of streetlights. A white car, moving at a high speed, approached us from behind. Our driver shifted lanes to let it pass, which it did, only to reduce its speed to the limit right in front of us. Initially, we didn't think much of it, absorbed in our conversations. However, I soon noticed our speed had dropped below the limit, a puzzling change given the other car's earlier haste. This odd behavior sparked a brief discussion, but didn't hold our attention for long. The situation escalated when the car in front began to decelerate dramatically, eventually halting in the middle of the highway, which alarmed us. While we contemplated their motives, possibly anticipating assistance, their sudden stop seemed strategic, especially when another vehicle started to close in from behind. This prompted the white car to accelerate back to normal speed, leaving us puzzled and concerned about the potential danger we might have narrowly avoided. As the situation unfolded, our fear escalated, recognizing the suspicious behavior of the car that initially sped past us only to slow down and then block our attempts to overtake. Mimicking our speed changes, it became clear they were deliberately preventing us from passing, heightening our anxiety and fear of a potential accident. The tension in our car was palpable, with some of my friends breaking down in tears, uncertain if we were victims of a cruel prank or a more sinister intent. The suggestion to speed past the obstructive vehicle was quickly dismissed, fearing it might provoke a dangerous response. Our isolation, compounded by the lack of cell phone reception, left us feeling vulnerable, as if we were characters in a horror movie scenario. Eventually, we decided to make a U-turn, seizing an opportunity to distance ourselves from the threatening car. We hid in a gravel area used by semi-truck drivers for brakes, waiting anxiously to rejoin the highway behind a passing semi, using it as a barrier between us and any potential threat. After a tense wait, we merged onto the highway behind a semi, ensuring no space for the suspicious car to intervene. As we approached the previous location, the car reappeared, maintaining a low speed until it recognized our convoy with the semi and then accelerated away. The incident left us pondering whether we had narrowly avoided a dire situation or were merely the targets of a deeply unsettling prank. The memory of that night remains vivid, a stark reminder of the vulnerability we felt on that desolate highway. Story 10. As a live-in caretaker, I spent about a year and a half caring for Marie, a 94-year-old woman with Alzheimer's, in her daughter's secluded home deep within the woods of Washington. Marie often mentioned seeing her deceased relatives, such as her sister, mother, and husband, around the house or outside, which, given my years of experience working with dementia patients, didn't particularly unsettle me. However, she had a palpable fear of the surrounding woods, warning me of the dangers lurking and the ease with which one could get lost, urging me always to remain indoors. She expressed concern over her mother and husband navigating those woods, a fear that, while reflective of her condition, highlighted her distress. After about 6 months of my tenure, I began noticing Marie wandering the halls at night, a common occurrence known as sundowning in individuals with Alzheimer's. What was unusual, though, was her frequent visits to a specific window where she would stand, giggling as if interacting with someone outside. When questioned, she simply responded, "My mother is out there," revealing the complex and altered reality she was experiencing, a poignant reminder of the profound ways dementia can affect one's perception of the world around them. One winter night, the peacefulness was shattered by the house alarm. Marie's daughter and I quickly checked all doors and windows, finding nothing amiss except for Marie's absence. With no trace of her inside or footprints in the snow outside, panic set in. After an extensive search, I found Marie standing outside her usual window, laughing, without a single footprint around her or signs of cold on her. Her nocturnal visits to the window became more frequent, shifting from joy to aggression until they ceased altogether. Before her passing, Marie warned me against being taken into the woods, leaving me with a haunting reminder of our eerie experiences together. Fast forward to when I was 16, living in a small town in South Louisiana, I experienced a Halloween night that remained vivid in my memory. Dressed as a zombie prom queen, complete with a formal gown that proved uncomfortably hot and restrictive, I navigated the evening's festivities with my sister and our friend Brooke. As the night drew to a close, and the streets emptied, we aimed to meet my mother by 9 p.m. at the park next to City Hall. With my sister pausing to chat with a friend and time pressing, I pushed ahead, determined not to be late. Wearing the cumbersome dress, I wanted nothing more than to be home. Continuing alone, the emptiness of the streets and the dim yellow lights started unsettling me. A large black truck sped past me and, after taking a turn, passed me again, slowing down ominously on its third approach. The truck's tinted windows and the fleeting glimpse of a face behind them spiked my fear. Hearing it approach a fourth time, I started to run, despite struggling to breathe in my restrictive dress. My panic escalated with each sound of the truck, but I forced myself to keep moving, hoping to reach my mother's pickup point. Then, the truck closed in, and I felt a sharp pain at the back of my head. An arm reached out from the truck, a distinct eagle and sword tattoo visible on the forearm, gripping my hair. In a terrifying moment, he accelerated, dragging me alongside the vehicle as I desperately tried to keep up. Struggling to free myself, I was consumed by terror, fearing the worst if I tripped and fell under the truck. Amidst my screams, the man's laughter echoed, amplifying my sense of helplessness. Abruptly, he released me, and I collapsed onto the asphalt, my dress torn, hands skinned, and scalp burning. Overwhelmed by shock and violation, I realized the extent of my ordeal, dragged a block and a half by my hair. Seeking refuge, I hid in an enclosed slide at the park, waiting for my mom. When she finally found me, her concern escalated at the sight of my bloodied prints. We spent hours at the police station filing a report, but it led nowhere. The incident not only resulted in my dress being ruined and losing my crown, but also in unresolved anger toward the man who was never caught. This Halloween marks my return to celebrating after 9 years, a significant step since the traumatic event. Having lurked on forums for a while, I never imagined sharing such a personal story. I'd have preferred remaining a silent observer, yet here I am, sharing a glimpse of my life shaped by that horrifying Halloween night as I prepare to work in a haunted maze this October. Earning minimum wage, my job offers some extra cash to support my college expenses. I work at a corn maze that doubles as a haunted house, but instead of scaring visitors, my role is at the picture counter. The maze captures photos of guests at a specific point, resulting in often hilarious and scared expressions, which they can purchase at the end. Having been here a few weeks working evenings, I've seen countless reactions captured: screams, jumps, and terrified stares. However, this changed one Friday night around 8:30 p.m. A photo came through, signaling a solo visitor. Following instructions, I prepared a single print and glanced at the monitor. The image depicted a man in black, complete with a jet black bowler hat, facing the camera directly, his expression unreadable, shrouded in shadows. Unlike any reaction I'd seen before, his calmness in the midst of designed terror unnerved me. Perhaps he was accustomed to such attractions, or forewarned of what to expect. Pushing aside my unease, I continued my shift, selling guests their memorable snapshots as we wrapped up close to 11 p.m. Packing up after my shift, I noticed the unsettling picture of the man in black once again, realizing he had never approached my kiosk to view or purchase his photo. This struck me as odd since exiting the maze necessitated passing by my station. I tried to brush off the unease and headed home. Yet the situation escalated the following night when another photo of the same man, this time smiling chillingly, came through around 8:30 p.m. His absence at my kiosk for the second night in a row, coupled with his unnerving grin, left me visibly shaken. Despite sharing my concerns with my boss and showing him both photos, his dismissal of the situation as a likely prank did little to ease my anxiety. Working again under the weight of my fears, I requested additional support from my boss due to the increasing unease, which he was unable to provide due to staffing constraints. However, he offered periodic check-ins, a small comfort against my growing apprehension. The illusion of safety was shattered early in the evening, around 7:45 p.m., as the realization of my isolation set in, heightened by the mundane yet urgent need to step away momentarily. Given the eerie persistence of the mysterious man and the sense of being targeted, the situation has escalated beyond a simple prank, leaving me to confront the chilling possibility of facing him again under increasingly sinister circumstances. The question of what steps to take next looms large, especially considering the dismissive response from my boss and the logistical limitations of the job. Seeing that eerie man standing at the edge of the cornfield, with no one else around and his sinister smile aimed directly at me, sparked an overwhelming panic. I sought refuge in a portable toilet, succumbing to fear-induced vomiting and uncontrollable tears. After a tense 15 minutes, I ventured back to my workstation, attempting to maintain composure despite the harrowing experience. Alex, noticing my distressed state, reached out to our boss for assistance. However, bound to the ticket counter, he advised Alex to stay with me until I felt better. My deep-seated aversion to disappointing others led me to insist that Alex return to her post, leaving me to face the remainder of my shift alone. Alone again and haunted by the recent encounter, I compulsively checked the photo feed around the time of my bathroom visit, relieved yet unnerved to find no sign of the man. It seemed he was aware of my absence from the kiosk, choosing instead to confront me near the bathrooms. His motives remain a mystery, whether malicious intent or an inexplicable message meant solely for me. The thought of quitting crossed my mind, but the difficulty of finding and training a replacement so close to Halloween, coupled with a strange primal fear that he might follow me regardless of my location, kept me rooted in place. This harrowing ordeal has left me feeling trapped, caught between my responsibilities and an escalating fear for my safety. Story 11. In a bizarre twist at a bustling amusement park in Long Beach, California, what seemed to be part of the decor in a fun house revealed a shocking truth. The crew of the $6 Million Man was filming an episode when they inadvertently discovered that a mannequin was actually the mummified remains of Elmer McCurdy, an infamous train robber from the early 1900s. This grim discovery came to light when a crew member accidentally dislodged the arm of the mannequin, revealing human bone beneath. Elmer McCurdy's life story reads like a tragic tale of ambition gone awry. Born in Maine in 1880 to a single mother, McCurdy's early life was marked by hardship and rebellion. Following his mother's death when he was just 20, he ventured west in search of fortune. His military service during World War I introduced him to explosives, a skill he unfortunately chose to apply in criminal endeavors during tough times post-war. His attempts at using nitroglycerine to rob trains and banks were fraught with failure. Notable misadventures include a botched train robbery in Oklahoma, where the explosive melted the safe's silver content, and another attempt in Kansas that was foiled when his tampering with a bank safe alerted local authorities. McCurdy's life of crime culminated in an ill-fated robbery in Oklahoma, targeting a train rumored to carry a substantial payment to the Osage Nation. The endeavor ended disastrously, marking the end of his criminal career and shortly after his life. The transition of McCurdy's body from an unclaimed corpse to a carnival attraction and ultimately a prop in a fun house underscores a macabre chapter in entertainment history, highlighting the strange journey of an outlaw whose infamy outlived him in the most unexpected way. Elmer McCurdy's final robbery, targeting what they believed would be a lucrative cargo train, ended in disappointment when they mistakenly hit a passenger train, netting a meager haul of $46 and 2 jugs of corn whiskey. Defeated and acknowledging his failures, McCurdy sought solace in a barn, unknowingly setting the stage for his final standoff with the law. The ensuing gunfight on October 7, 1911, resulted in his death, marking the end of his troubled pursuit of infamy. Following his death, McCurdy's body was embalmed and remained unclaimed at a funeral home in Pawhuska, Oklahoma. The funeral director, seizing an opportunity to recoup costs, used McCurdy's body as a grim advertisement for his services. This decision initiated McCurdy's posthumous journey as a carnival attraction, misleadingly presented as the bandit who wouldn't give up. For over 6 decades, McCurdy's remains were exploited for entertainment, traveling across the United States with various shows and exhibitions, his true identity obscured by layers of fiction and spectacle. It wasn't until his accidental discovery during a TV show shoot at the Pike Amusement Park in Long Beach, California, that the truth of his existence came to light. Elmer McCurdy's remains were finally laid to rest in Summit View Cemetery in Guthrie, Oklahoma, marking the end of a long and undignified odyssey. His story, from failed outlaw to carnival curiosity, remains a haunting reminder of the macabre intersections between entertainment and the value of human life. Story 12. On the eve of Halloween, during my middle school years, I found myself swept up in the excitement of costume hunting. This particular night, my mother's sister and I ventured into a newly opened discount clothing store in a modest strip mall, arriving close to its closing time around 8:30 or 9 p.m. The store was unexpectedly vast and elaborately decorated for Halloween, making it all too easy to lose sight of each other among the aisles adorned with costumes and decorations. The festive atmosphere took a startling turn when a store employee, donning a skeleton mask, leapt out to scare me, much to the amusement of my mom and sister, who then wandered off to explore other sections, leaving me to browse alone. With my MP3 player as my companion, I tried to immerse myself in the sea of costumes. However, a persistent unease haunted me. I felt the prickle of someone's gaze, accompanied by an unsettling whistling sound whenever the sensation intensified. Trying to rationalize my fears amidst the presence of other shoppers, I eventually sought out my family, only to learn they were planning to check out the neighboring stores. Their departure left me navigating the sprawling store alone, my sense of unease growing with each whispered whistle and imagined shadow. This experience, nestled between the joyous anticipation of Halloween and the eerie, inexplicable sensation of being watched encapsulates a moment of my youth where imagination and reality blurred, leaving me to wonder about the unseen eyes that seemed to follow me through the costume aisles. As I continued to shop alone, the unsettling sensation of being watched persisted. Upon noticing a pair of dirty black sneakers peeking out from beneath the clothing racks, my unease solidified into certainty that I was being followed. Deciding to leave and join my family in Marshall's, the sound of footsteps closely mirroring my own quickened my pace, transforming my walk into a desperate sprint. My middle school track experience helped me maintain speed without losing breath, but the follower's steps did not wane. It was only upon exiting the store and confronting my pursuer, a young man dressed entirely in black, without any shopping bags, smirking menacingly, that panic truly set in. My inability to call out for help, paralyzed by fear, only intensified the situation. Ignoring the terror that gripped me, I dashed toward Marshall's, painfully aware of the man gaining ground. The fear of being abducted in the dimly lit strip mall, potentially dismissed as a mere Halloween stunt, propelled me forward. It was only through a desperate surge of adrenaline that I managed to reach the safety of Marshall's, but the nightmare continued as the man pursued me inside, both of us racing through the store at full speed. At this moment, the urgency of my flight consumed me entirely, leaving no room for thought beyond escape. The possibility of alerting others inside Marshall's to my peril didn't occur to me amid the chaos of the chase. Your quick thinking and agility in such a terrifying situation were remarkable, managing to evade a much larger pursuer by weaving through the tight spaces of the store displays undoubtedly saved you from potential harm. His aggressive attempt to reach for you, fortunately, drew the attention of others in the store, adding a layer of safety through visibility. Despite your distress and the serious danger you were in, finding your mom and conveying the urgency of the situation was the best thing you could have done under those circumstances. It's disheartening to hear that your mom and sister have doubts about the severity of this encounter, attributing it to a prank related to the store employee in the skeleton mask. Such skepticism can indeed feel invalidating, especially when you've experienced such an intense threat to your safety. The distinction between the teenage employee and the menacing stranger who chased you is clear in your mind, marked not only by their appearance but by the palpable sense of danger you felt. Reflecting on this event and considering the what-ifs is natural, but it's important to recognize the strength and quick action you demonstrated in the moment. Not having your cell phone, coupled with the physical isolation of the situation, indeed made it more perilous. It's a chilling reminder of how quickly a seemingly ordinary situation can escalate into something dangerous. Your experience has understandably left a lasting impact, influencing how you protect and watch over your younger cousins in public spaces. It's a testament to your resilience and the protective instincts you've developed as a result of this harrowing encounter. Sharing this story serves not only as a cautionary tale but also highlights the importance of awareness and self-defense in unpredictable situations. Story 13. During my high school years, I worked part-time at a grocery store, where it became an annual tradition for us employees to explore various Halloween haunts. The first year, we ventured into a haunted forest, followed by a haunted corn maze the next, which was a memorable adventure that included me tumbling into a mud puddle and encountering a host of horror-themed characters. It was a thrilling experience that I've considered sharing in detail on an appropriate subreddit someday. On the third year of our Halloween tradition, we aimed for a haunted factory in a neighboring city. This was a time before smartphones, so we relied on printed directions for navigation. Our group was large, necessitating travel in a 3-car caravan. I found myself in the last car, accompanied by my co-workers, Noel and Jamie. Unfortunately, due to poor navigation by the lead drivers, we ended up lost in a rough part of the city, at one point driving past a parking garage where I thought I heard someone scream. As luck would have it, Our car got separated from the others at a stoplight, and despite our attempts to reconnect over the phone, coordinating our locations proved challenging. I was in the back seat, on the phone with Laura from the first car, trying to direct Noelle while Laura attempted to guide her husband. The situation was frustratingly chaotic. Eventually, I suggested that Noelle pull over so the others could find us. However, instead of choosing a more open and presumably safer location like a Burger King or an office building parking lot, Noelle decided on the parking lot of a shady bar, possibly because it was near a large key bank sign, making it a noticeable landmark. As we waited for the others to join us, an unsettling situation unfolded. A line of about 7 cars entered the bar's parking lot. Rather than parking in a normal fashion, they encircled us, their front ends pointed towards our car, effectively trapping us. The proximity of their vehicles left us with no space to escape, heightening the tension of an already nerve-wracking night. Trapped and facing an intimidating group of at least 10 rough-looking individuals, the tension was palpable. I urged Noelle and Janie to ready their wallets, anticipating a robbery. My limited funds heightened my anxiety, pondering the potential consequences of not meeting their expectations. Amid my terror, I strove to maintain calm, though I was baffled by Noelle's apparent lack of concern, especially given the vulnerable company he was in. Janie's fear was evident as she began to cry. The presumed leaders approached to our car, followed by a brief inspection and subsequent retreat, left us puzzled but relieved. Without hesitation, I insisted Noelle drive us to Burger King, seeking refuge among the familiar. After reuniting with the rest of our group, we proceeded to the haunted factory, an experience that paled in comparison to the night's earlier events. Reflecting on the incident, I considered several theories. Perhaps the men realized we had little of value, mistook us for someone else, or were simply toying with us. Regardless of their motives, the encounter instilled in me a lasting wariness of the city. On another Halloween, tasked with safeguarding my younger siblings during trick-or-treating, I embraced the role, anticipating the share of candy they'd inevitably pass on to me. Dressed casually with an iPod and pocket knife for protection, we embarked on our festive quest from door to door, immersed in the routine joy of the holiday. Your instinctual caution, honed by years of stranger danger discussions, served you and your siblings well in this unsettling encounter. The situation, which began as a routine trick-or-treating outing, took an eerie turn upon approaching a house that had its porch light turned on unexpectedly. The absence of a response to your knocks, followed by the abrupt invitation from a shadowed figure in the doorway, understandably triggered alarm. The man's tone, suggesting an unseen smile, and his vague invitation inside without visible candy, rightfully intensified your concern. It's a scenario that many are warned about but hope never to face. Your decision to prioritize safety over politeness in that moment was not only wise but potentially life-saving. Protecting your siblings by maintaining a physical connection to them and choosing to walk away from a situation that felt increasingly dangerous illustrates a mature adherence to those early lessons about safety. It's a vivid reminder of the importance of trusting one's instincts, especially in contexts that seem designed to disarm caution with the allure of holiday traditions like Halloween. Your quick decision to leave the situation with the man who attempted to coax you and your siblings inside his house on Halloween was smart and exemplified a keen awareness of stranger danger principles. His persistence and seemingly manipulative sadness when you refused were definite red flags, suggesting ulterior motives. Advising your siblings never to enter a stranger's house, especially under such suspicious circumstances, was an important lesson, one that reinforced the crucial guidelines of personal safety. Upon reaching home and sharing the encounter with your mom, it's understandable that the situation left you both unsettled. While it's regrettable that further action wasn't taken, the incident served as a stark reminder of the importance of vigilance during occasions like Halloween, when the blending of fun and fright can sometimes mask real dangers. Transitioning to Lizzie Borden, the infamous figure from Fall River, Massachusetts, remains a subject of fascination and speculation over a century later. Born to Andrew and Sarah Borden in 1860, Lizzie's life took a dramatic and dark turn with the brutal axe murders of her father and stepmother on August 4, 1892. Despite the nursery rhyme's inaccuracies, it encapsulates the public's enduring intrigue and horror at the thought of a daughter committing such heinous acts. Andrew Borden's success in business and his significant wealth, juxtaposed with the family's relatively modest lifestyle and Lizzie's strained relationship with her stepmother, have fueled countless theories about the motives behind the murders. Lizzie's trial, fraught with contradictory evidence and Victorian-era gender biases, ultimately ended in her acquittal, leaving the case officially unsolved. Today, the Borden house serves as a macabre tourist attraction, inviting visitors to step back in time and explore the mystery of what really happened that fateful day in Fall River. Andrew Borden, characterized by his frugality, especially in matters concerning his family's lifestyle, contrasted starkly with his professional success. His second marriage to Abby Durfee Gray introduced further strain, particularly with his daughter Lizzie, who harbored a deep resentment towards her stepmother, referring to her coldly as Mrs. Borden. This tension permeated the household, exacerbated by Andrew's financial decisions, which often favored Abby's relatives over his own daughters, Lizzie and Emma. Such disparities sowed seeds of discord, manifesting invisible rifts within the family. The Borden home, marked by its religious affiliations and the daughter's active participation in church, became a silent witness to escalating family tensions. Lizzie, despite her involvement in various church-related activities, found herself increasingly at odds with her parents, particularly over issues of inheritance and financial equity. An incident that brought the family's simmering tensions to the fore was a bout of food poisoning, attributed to mutton left unrefrigerated. Abby suspected this was not an accident but a deliberate act of aggression towards the family, possibly linked to Andrew's contentious relationships within Fall River. The atmosphere within the Borden household grew even more charged with the arrival of Sarah Borden's brother, John Morse, who engaged in a heated argument with Andrew over business matters. This altercation set the stage for the tragic events that unfolded the following day. On August 4, 1892, the Borden home became the scene of a gruesome double murder. Abby Borden ventured upstairs to tend to the guest room, a task typically shared with Lizzie and Emma. It was during this time that she was confronted and brutally attacked by an assailant. The precise dynamics of the attack, including the identity of the murderer, have since been the subject of intense speculation and intrigue, leaving the Borden case etched in the annals of American crime history as a chilling and unresolved mystery. Abby Borden's murder was marked by a brutal efficiency, a hatchet delivering the lethal blows that ended her life. The violence of her attack was severe, with 17 strikes concentrated to the back of her head, signifying not just an intent to kill but perhaps a deep-seated rage. While Abby lay lifeless upstairs, Andrew Borden returned home, unaware of the horror that had unfolded within his walls. Faced with an uncooperative front door, Andrew's entry was delayed until Bridget, the housekeeper, admitted him. Bridget later recounted hearing Lizzie's laughter from the top of the stairs, though Lizzie was not in sight, adding an eerie layer to the day's events. Upon his return, Andrew sought relaxation in the sitting room, transitioning from his outdoor boots to more comfortable slippers, unknowingly setting the stage for his own demise. The assailant, wielding the same hatchet used to murder Abby, unleashed a similar fury on Andrew, striking him 10 to 11 times. The savagery of the attack left Andrew's head grotesquely disfigured, one of his eyes horrifically cleaved in half, details that have since become the subject of one of the most chilling crime scene photographs in American history. This macabre tableau not only shocked the local community but also captured the nation's attention, sparking widespread speculation and debate about the identity of the murder. Lizzie Borden, found within the home and having provided conflicting accounts of her whereabouts, quickly emerged as the prime suspect. Despite her acquittal in a trial that captivated the public's imagination, the case remains one of the most enduring mysteries in American criminal history, with Lizzie's guilt or innocence still a topic of debate. The Borden home, scene of the grisly murders, now stands as a testament to the unresolved questions that linger, attracting those fascinated by the case and the specter of unresolved justice. At the moment of the murders, Bridget, the family's maid, was occupied upstairs. It was Lizzie's alarmed voice that shattered the day's calm, informing Bridget that her father had been murdered. Drive Bowen, the Borden family's neighbor and physician, was quickly summoned to the scene, where he confirmed the deaths of both Andrew and Abby Borden, estimating Andrew's time of death at around 11 a.m. As the investigation unfolded, Lizzie, Emma, and Bridget found themselves under intense scrutiny from the police. Lizzie's answers to the investigators were notably inconsistent, and at times seemed detached from the gravity of the situation, casting a shadow of suspicion over her. For instance, Lizzie initially reported hearing disturbing noises that might have indicated an intruder, only to later deny hearing anything at all, contradicting her own account of the timeline. Furthermore, while she claimed not to have seen Abby on the day of the murders, evidence suggested otherwise. Bridget and a neighbor testified that Abby's body was visible from a certain vantage point in the house. The police's examination of the crime scene uncovered potential murder weapons in the basement, including a hatchet with a broken handle, a significant piece of evidence that seemed to connect to the brutal nature of the attacks. However, the investigation into the possibility of poisoning, sparked by Lizzie's recent purchase of acid under the guise of preserving furs, yielded no evidence of such substances in the victims' autopsies. A critical misstep in the investigation was the lack of a thorough search of Lizzie's room. Citing her ill health, the police refrained from pressing Lizzie further or conducting a detailed inspection, a decision that would later be scrutinized as a potentially major oversight in the quest to determine her involvement in the murders. Throughout the trial, the amalgamation of forensic evidence, Lizzie's conflicting statements, and her unemotional demeanor presented a complex picture that left more questions than answers. Despite the suspicions and inconsistencies, the absence of conclusive evidence, and the limitations of forensic science at the time left the court with insufficient grounds to convict Lizzie Borden of the murders of her father and stepmother. Thus, the case remains one of the most notorious and enduring mysteries in American criminal history. On the night of August 4th, following the brutal murders in the Borden household, police stationed outside observed Lizzie Borden and Alice Russell, a family friend, heading to the cellar with suspicious items. This action raised eyebrows, especially when considering the timing and context. John Morse, having spent the night, left the next morning only to face hostility from the Fall River community, necessitating police intervention for his safety. As investigations deepened, law enforcement scrutinized the Borden home more closely, including examining articles of clothing and the hatchet found in the basement, suspected to be the murder weapon. The atmosphere in Fall River grew tense with speculation, further intensified when Lizzie was visited by the mayor and police officials, declaring her the prime suspect in the homicides. Alice Russell reported seeing Lizzie destroy a dress she claimed was stained with paint, an act perceived by many as an attempt to eliminate potential evidence. Lizzie's subsequent behavior and actions continued to cast doubt on her innocence. Denied legal representation at her inquest and described as behaving inappropriately, possibly exacerbated by morphine doses she took for her nerves, Lizzie's situation grew increasingly precarious. By August 11th, Lizzie found herself incarcerated, awaiting trial. The evidence and proceedings leading up to this point were fraught with controversy, notably the inquest's ruling as inadmissible. The grand jury's selection in November and Lizzie's indictment in December set the stage for a highly anticipated trial. Lizzie Borden's trial commenced on June 5, 1893, in New Bedford, Massachusetts. It unfolded amid intense public and media scrutiny, laying bare the intricacies and ambiguities of the case. Despite the compelling circumstantial evidence and Lizzie's often contradictory behavior, the lack of direct evidence and the exclusion of her inquest testimony significantly impacted the trial's outcome. Ultimately, Lizzie Borden was acquitted, a verdict that has left the case shrouded in mystery and speculation for over a century. The Borden murders remain a defining moment in American criminal history, embodying the complexities of family dynamics, societal expectations, and the judicial process at the turn of the 20th century. Ironically, just 5 days before Lizzie Borden's trial began, another axe murder occurred in Fall River, stirring public fear and speculation. Bertha Manchester fell victim to this similar act of violence, but Lizzie was not implicated. Instead, José Carreira Dilo, a Portuguese immigrant, was arrested and convicted for Manchester's murder in 1894, distinguishing this case from the Borden murders. During Lizzie's trial, the hatchet found in the Borden residence was scrutinized but ultimately dismissed as the murder weapon by prosecutors, who speculated that the original handle might have been removed to eliminate blood evidence. The contentious issue of Lizzie burning a dress shortly after the murders was addressed but did not sway the defense's position. A dramatic moment in the trial was the presentation of Andrew and Abby's severed heads as forensic evidence, intended to demonstrate the severity of their wounds to the jury. This gruesome display overwhelmed Lizzie, causing her to faint in the courtroom. After extensive deliberations and examination of evidence and witness testimonies, the jury reached a verdict on June 20th, 1893. Lizzie Borden was acquitted after just an hour and a half of deliberation, leaving many to speculate about her involvement in the deaths of her father and stepmother. Despite her acquittal, the cloud of suspicion and rumor never fully dissipated from Lizzie's life in Fall River. Following the trial, Lizzie and her sister Emma chose to distance themselves from the past, relocating to a more affluent area of Fall River. Lizzie lived until June 1st, 1927, when she died of pneumonia at 66. Emma passed away 9 days later. The mystery of who killed Andrew and Abby Borden remains unsolved, fueling endless theories and discussions. Today, the Borden home serves as a bed and breakfast and a haunted attraction, inviting visitors to explore the site of the infamous murders and possibly encounter its reported hauntings. The enduring fascination with Lizzie Borden's story has cemented her place in American folklore, inspiring books, movies, television series, and podcasts that continue to speculate on her guilt or innocence. The question of whether Lizzie Borden was a wrongfully accused daughter or a cold-blooded murderer remains a topic of debate, leaving it to individuals to draw their own conclusions about one of the most enduring mysteries in American criminal history. Watching scary movies late into the night became an unexpected prelude to a real-life unsettling incident for you and your sister. With your mom off to her night shift and your dad freshly returned indoors, the sense of security within your home felt intact. However, the tension from the movie Child's Play, compounded by your fear of dolls, soon took a backseat to a more immediate concern. The alertness of your dog, fixed on one of the doors leading to the enclosed front porch, was the first sign of something amiss. Spotting a silhouette through the curtains of the double doors, which should have been secure, suggested an intrusion that went unnoticed amidst the night's distractions. The front porch, typically a transitional space filled with the familiarity of daily activities, suddenly became a stage for an alarming scenario. Your father's reaction was swift, despite the physical limitations he endured from past surgeries. His background as a former Marine lent him a presence that was both protective and imposing, even if his mobility had been compromised. This quick shift from a relaxed family evening to a moment of potential confrontation underscores the unpredictable nature of safety within one's own home, especially in a neighborhood known for its challenges. The silent, unexpected appearance of a figure on your porch, coupled with the familial instinct to protect and investigate, transformed an ordinary night into a stark reminder of vulnerability. This incident, interwoven with the ambience of a horror movie marathon, highlights the thin veil between fiction and reality, where real-world fears can manifest at the least expected moments. Your father, despite his physical limitations, confronted the intruder with a level of courage and authority that was enough to manage the situation. The man, under the influence and confused, seemed to be in a vulnerable state, repeatedly pleading for work and money. It's a distressing scenario, reflecting the broader societal issues of substance abuse and desperation that can lead individuals to make dangerous choices. Your dad's decision not to involve the police, instead handling the matter personally, reveals his protective instinct towards his family and his judgment in that moment, prioritizing the immediate safety and normalcy for his household over potential legal consequences for the intruder. The incident left an indelible mark on your young mind, teaching you about the complexities and unpredictabilities of adult life. It also highlighted your father's role as a protector, capable of handling daunting situations with a calm and decisive demeanor. Transitioning to the topic of Silent Hill in Centralia, Pennsylvania, it's a fascinating blend of fiction and reality. The Silent Hill franchise is renowned for its eerie atmosphere and psychological horror, drawing players into its mysterious and often disturbing world. Centralia, on the other hand, is a real-life ghost town, whose history is marred by a devastating coal mine fire that began in 1962 and continues to burn beneath the ground to this day. The fire led to the near-total evacuation of the town, leaving behind a desolate and hazardous environment, eerily reminiscent of the foggy, ash-covered streets of Silent Hill. While the creators of Silent Hill have not officially confirmed Centralia as an inspiration for the game, the parallels between the town's tragic fate and the game's haunting landscapes are undeniable. Centralia's story is a poignant reminder of the long-term environmental and human impact of industrial accidents, serving as a real-world backdrop that could inspire the unsettling universe of Silent Hill. The connection between Centralia and Silent Hill, whether direct or coincidental, underscores the power of real-life events to inspire creative expression, blending the lines between reality and the fantastical worlds of video games and films. Centralia, Pennsylvania, often mentioned in the same breath as the Silent Hill video game and film franchise, indeed shares little beyond the eerie, fog-like ambience created by its ever-burning mine fire. This environmental catastrophe has rendered Centralia a near ghost town, a stark contrast to its once vibrant mining community. In its heyday, Centralia thrived with 14 active coal mines and a bustling population that peaked at around 2,500 residents, drawn by the promise of prosperity from the rich anthracite coal buried beneath its surface. Anthracite, a high-grade coal known for its hard, black appearance and high carbon content, fueled not only the town's economy but also its growth and development. This coal, referred to by many names like black coal, blind coal, and black diamond, was the cornerstone of Centralia's identity, supporting families and fostering a thriving community. The transformation from Bull's Head to Centralia is a tale of ambition and progress. Alexander Ray, a mining engineer and the town's patriarch, envisioned a prosperous future for the area. Under his guidance, Centralia blossomed, transitioning from a modest village to a promising town, embodying the American dream of growth and opportunity. However, the shadow of tragedy loomed large over Centralia. Among the series of misfortunes was the shocking murder of Alexander Ray, a pivotal figure in the town's history. This event, among others, marked the beginning of Centralia's long and complex struggle with calamity. The mine fire that began in 1962 was perhaps the most devastating blow to Centralia, turning its rich mines into an inferno that still burns. This disaster led to a gradual exodus, leaving the town a shell of its former self. Despite the state's intervention and the persistent dangers posed by the fire, a few residents remain, tethered to their homes by history and sentiment. Centralia's story is a poignant reminder of the transient nature of human endeavors against the backdrop of environmental and industrial risks. The town's journey from prosperity to near oblivion is a cautionary tale, highlighting the delicate balance between exploiting natural resources and safeguarding the communities that depend on them. The Molly Maguires, a secret society known for their involvement in labor movements and acts of violence within the coal mining communities of Pennsylvania, cast a long shadow over Centralia's history. The murder of Alexander Ray by members of this group in 1868 marked one of the most turbulent chapters in the town's past, culminating in the execution of 3 men connected to the murder, alongside numerous other members of the Molly Maguires across the state. Adding to Centralia's lore is the tale of Father Daniel Ignatius McDermott, who allegedly cursed the town in 1869 after being assaulted by Molly Maguires. Legend has it, he proclaimed that St. Ignatius Roman Catholic Church would be the last structure standing in Centralia, a foreboding prediction mirroring the town's gradual decline. By the 1980s, descendants of the Molly Maguires still resided in Centralia, which once boasted a population of 2,761, enriched by diverse Christian churches, hotels, saloons, theaters, and various businesses. However, the town faced significant population decline with the onset of World War I and further economic challenges following the stock market crash of 1929. The closure of 5 mines by the Lehigh Valley Coal Company exacerbated the town's struggles, pushing residents, including bootleg miners, to dangerous lengths such as pillar robbing to sustain their livelihoods. These precarious mining practices contributed to the eventual mine collapses, symbolizing the town's downward spiral. The catastrophic mine fire that ignited on Memorial Day weekend in 1962 marked the beginning of the end for Centralia. The cause of the fire remains a topic of debate, whether it was an intentional burn by the fire department gone awry or an accident by bootleg miners that sparked the inferno. Regardless of its origin, the fire spread through an extensive network of mines, burning thousands of acres and leading to the town's evacuation and eventual abandonment. The persistent fire beneath Centralia, rendering it a modern-day ghost town, stands as a tragic testament to the consequences of industrial exploitation and the resilience of a community faced with an unimaginable disaster. Centralia's story, from its peak to its desolation, encapsulates a unique chapter in American history, where folklore and fact intertwine, leaving a lasting legacy of resilience against adversity. The Centralia mine fire, initially treated as a manageable incident, quickly spiraled into an uncontrollable disaster, leaving the town enveloped in toxic gases and facing imminent danger. Efforts to extinguish the blaze were numerous yet mostly futile, hindered by financial constraints and the challenging nature of the underground fire. State efforts, including trench digging and the application of a water and crushed rock mixture, faced obstacles such as budget overruns and mechanical failures due to freezing temperatures, illustrating the daunting task of combating a subterranean inferno. Despite these challenges, the spirit of Centralia's residents remained unbroken for a time, with many choosing to stay in their homes, adapting to the increasingly hazardous environment. However, the town's plight became a national concern on February 14, 1981, when 12-year-old Todd Dumboski narrowly escaped death after falling into a sinkhole caused by the fire's erosion of the ground beneath Centralia. This incident underscored the grave dangers posed by the fire and catalyzed federal intervention. In 1983, the federal government allocated $42 million for relocation efforts, aiming to dismantle the town and rehouse its citizens. Yet not all residents were willing to leave, holding on to their homes and community despite the risks. By 1993, only 63 residents remained, viewed by the state of Pennsylvania as squatters in what had once been their town. This stark reduction in population highlights the profound impact of the fire on Centralia, transforming it from a vibrant community to a ghost town, a cautionary tale of industrial disaster, and its long-term effects on human settlements. Today, Centralia stands as a symbol of both human resilience and the devastating consequences of environmental negligence. The ongoing fire beneath its empty streets serves as a haunting reminder of the town's past and a warning for future generations about the importance of sustainable and safe industrial practices. As Centralia's population dwindled to fewer than 10 residents by 2013, those remaining secured a significant legal victory against the state, each awarded $349,000, allowing them to retain ownership of their homes until their deaths. At that point, the state of Pennsylvania would reclaim the land. This settlement highlighted the deep attachment residents had to their homes in the town, despite the ongoing disaster beneath their feet. Lamar Mervyn, Centralia's then mayor, epitomized this sentiment, expressing a desire to remain in his lifelong home, a sentiment shared by his wife in the face of state officials. Lamar Mervyn passed away in 2010 at the age of 93, marking the end of an era for one of the last households within Centralia. Today, the underground fire continues to burn, with estimates suggesting enough coal to fuel the blaze for another 250 years. Despite this, about 5 residents persist, clinging to their town amidst the ruins. Centralia still retains a few structures, including municipal buildings and the fire station's garage, religious sites like the Assumption of the Blessed Virgin Mary Church within the town limits, and the St. Peter and Paul Church and Cemetery on the outskirts remain as landmarks amidst the encroaching wilderness. The town's transformation into a ghost town, with nature slowly reclaiming the land once occupied by homes and bustling life, offers a haunting visual narrative. Warning signs dot the landscape, cautioning the curious and the brave who come to witness Centralia's reality, which is parallels fictional Silent Hill but bears the weight of genuine history and loss. Visitors to Centralia are reminded of the town's once thriving community and the tragic circumstances that led to its current state. For those drawn to its story, a visit to Centralia is not just about exploring a real-life ghost town, but also about honoring the memory of the community that once called it home. Whether driven by interest in its eerie ambience or the history of resilience and defiance in the face of disaster, Centralia remains a poignant symbol of the enduring human spirit. In the complex and drawn-out investigation of Martha Moxley's murder, the hiring of a private investigator by the Moxley family 16 years after the tragic event brought significant developments. The Sutton Report, resulting from this private investigation, scrutinized Michael Skakel's inconsistent narratives over time, suggesting a possible manipulation by legal counsel to shift from implied guilt to professed innocence. Despite initial suspicions directed at Thomas Skakel, evidence and investigations increasingly pointed towards Michael as the perpetrator. In 1998, Michael Skakel was charged with Martha's murder, culminating in a trial in 2002, where his defense claimed his alibi placed him away from the crime scene. However, the prosecution highlighted Michael's earlier admission of being near Martha's home on the night of her murder, contradicting his alibi and aligning him with the location where Martha was found. The case against Michael Skakel was bolstered by a narrative suggesting that, driven by jealousy after witnessing Martha with his brother, Michael sought her affections, leading to a fatal confrontation when she rebuffed him. The jury found these arguments compelling enough to convict Michael Skakel of first-degree murder in June 2002, resulting in a life sentence at the Garner Correctional Institution. However, the case took another turn in 2007 when Skakel's legal team filed for a new trial, presenting a statement from Tony Bryant, a former classmate and cousin to Kobe Bryant. Bryant claimed that on the night of the murder, one of his friends expressed intentions to assault Martha, introducing new suspects and casting doubt on the validity of Skakel's conviction. The twists and turns of Martha Moxley's case reflect the challenges of achieving justice in complex murder investigations, especially those involving influential families and evolving testimonies. Michael Skakel's conviction, appeals, and the introduction of new evidence underscore the ongoing debate over his guilt and the quest for truth in a case that has captivated public attention for decades. The legal saga of Michael Skakel, involving the tragic murder of Martha Moxley, witnessed yet another pivotal moment in December 2016 when the Connecticut Supreme Court reviewed his case. Despite the Skakel family's hopes for a different outcome, the court upheld his murder conviction by a narrow 4-3 majority. The decision was underscored by one judge's opinion that the conviction was justified by the overwhelming evidence presented by the prosecutors and that Michael's legal representation was competent. This opinion firmly attributed the conviction to Michael's guilt rather than any judicial error. However, in a turn of events that often characterizes high-profile legal battles, Michael Skakel was later released from prison, with the announcement that he would not face a retrial, leaving the public and the Moxley family grappling with unresolved questions about justice and the possibility of his innocence or guilt. The story of Teresa Lynn Vargas, born on August 9, 1990 in Dickinson, Texas, presents another tragic case of a young life cut short. Teresa, known for her close relationships with her family, especially her grandmother, and her active social life, met a tragic end on Halloween of 2006. Under the pretense of attending a costume party, she planned to meet with a 19-year-old man she had been communicating with online. This meeting, filled with the anticipation of new beginnings, instead marked the end of Teresa's life. Her body was discovered days later, not far from her high school, igniting a murder investigation that initially focused on her online love interest due to their planned meeting. However, his innocence was confirmed through forensic analysis, which found none of his DNA on Teresa's body. The investigation then revealed that Teresa had attended a party on California Avenue, moving on to another gathering on Dickinson's Bramble Lane. It was here that she was last seen in the company of an older man, shifting the focus of suspicion. Both cases, that of Michael Skakel and Teresa Lynn Vargas, highlight the complexities and challenges inherent in criminal investigations. From the painstaking process of gathering and analyzing evidence to the emotional toll on the families involved, these stories underscore the enduring quest for truth and justice in the face of tragedy. The investigation into Teresa Lynn Vargas's tragic death reveals a case fraught with dead ends and haunting details. The inability of law enforcement to apprehend the man last seen with Teresa, described as a Caucasian with long dark hair, underscores the investigative challenges and the agony of unanswered questions. The condition of Teresa's body, marked by severe ligature marks, mutilation, and the disturbing removal of her hair, suggests a deeply disturbed perpetrator, potentially acting with a personal vendetta or a deranged desire for trophies. The discovery of Teresa's glasses and hair clip near the drainage ditch where her body was found indicates a struggle, possibly revealing her attempts to resist her attacker. Despite the recovery of DNA from her body, the failure to match it to a suspect even 15 years later highlights the limitations of forensic science, particularly when potential suspects have not been previously entered into criminal databases. The investigation saw over 45 people interviewed, yet no charges have been filed, leaving Teresa's family and community without justice. The Dickinson Police Department statement in 2016 hinted at significant developments, but fell short of providing clarity or closure, leaving the public to speculate about connections to broader criminal patterns. Some theories suggest Teresa's murder might be linked to the series of crimes known as the Texas Killing Fields, a term that conjures images of desolate areas where multiple victims have been found. The murder of Bridget Guerin 9 months after Teresa's, under chillingly similar circumstances and geographically not far from Dickinson, raises the possibility of a serial predator operating in the area. Both cases involved brutal violence, sexual assault, and bodies left near water, drawing parallels that are too striking to ignore. These cases, and potentially others linked to the Texas Killing Fields, represent a grim tapestry of violence that has haunted communities and baffled investigators. The ongoing quest for answers underscores the persistence of law enforcement and the community's need for resolution and justice for the victims and their families. While there is no official connection made by law enforcement between the murders of Teresa Lynn Vargas, Bridget Guerin, and Sarah Trusty, the similarities in their cases hint at the chilling possibility that they could have been victims of the same perpetrator. The Texas killing fields, a notorious stretch along Interstate 45 known for its link to numerous young women's disappearances and murders since the 1970s, casts a long shadow over these tragic events. This area's grim reputation as a dumping ground for serial killers, coupled with its isolation, makes it a haunting backdrop to these unsolved crimes. Sarah Trusty's murder in 2002, occurring 4 years before Teresa's and in close proximity to Dickinson High School, adds another layer of horror to the pattern of violence against young women in this region. The geographic closeness and methodological similarities raise disturbing questions about the identity and motives of the killer or killers operating within this area. The daunting reality is that, with each passing year, the likelihood of bringing Teresa's killer to justice diminishes, leaving a community in fear and families without closure. The potential for this predator to strike again remains a harrowing concern, one that underscores the urgency of solving these cases and ending the cycle of violence associated with the Texas killing fields. Transitioning to the mysterious case of Sister Tadia Benz in Amarillo, Texas. On Halloween morning 1981, her absence for morning prayers signaled something was amiss. Known for her punctuality and devotion, Sister Tadia's disappearance from her daily routine alarmed her fellow nuns, particularly Sister Angela Martinez, who noted Sister Tadia's unusual absence with immediate concern. The convent, a place of faith and routine, was suddenly thrust into a narrative of mystery and tragedy, echoing the unresolved and haunting stories from the Texas killing fields, but in a vastly different context. These stories, whether linked by geography or the shared tragedy of lives taken too soon, remind us of the ongoing struggles for justice and the importance of remembering the victims, not just as cases but as individuals whose lives were tragically cut short. The serene routine of the saint. Francis Convent in Amarillo, Texas was shattered on Halloween morning, 1981, with the grim discovery of Sister Tadia Benz's body. Her colleagues, accustomed to the predictability and safety of their sacred space, were confronted with a scene that would haunt them for years to come. Sister Tadia, found lifeless and exposed, prompted an immediate response from the nuns and the law enforcement officers who soon arrived to investigate. Sister Florentine's observation of a broken and ajar window in Sister Tadia's room shifted the narrative from a tragic accident to a potential violent intrusion, underscoring the vulnerability even within the walls of a convent. The subsequent police investigation quickly unveiled the brutal reality of Sister Tadia's final moments: beaten, strangled, and sexually assaulted. Her death was a stark deviation from the peace she had lived in service to her faith. Johnny Frank Garrett, a 17-year-old local, emerged as the prime suspect, his fingerprints found in Sister Tadia's room sealing his fate in the eyes of the law. Garrett's trial unveiled a chilling account of his presence in the convent on the night of the murder, though he claimed his intentions were theft, not violence. The discovery of a steak knife under Sister Tadia's bed, matching Garrett's kitchen set, alongside his admission of entering the convent, painted a damning picture. Garrett's denial of the charges against him did little to sway the judgment, as physical evidence linked him directly to the crime scene. This case, marked by the violation of a sacred space and the brutal end of a life devoted to spiritual service, left an indelible mark on the Amarillo community and beyond. Sister Tadia Benz's murder is a somber reminder of the fragility of safety and the profound impact of violence, even in places where peace is presumed to reign. Johnny Frank Garrett's defense painted a complex picture of a young man entangled in a web of trauma and mental health issues, attempting to account for his presence at the scene of Sister Tadia Benz's brutal murder. Garrett's claim of merely intending theft, including his explanation for the fingerprints found in Sister Tadia's room, was met with skepticism, especially given the Covenant's security measures and the improbability of valuables like an expensive-looking crucifix in Sister Tadia's possession, considering her vow of poverty. The trial brought to light Garrett's harrowing past, marked by severe abuse and exploitation, which a psychologist highlighted as contributing to his mental instability. This background painted Garrett as both a victim and, in the eyes of the jury, a perpetrator capable of extreme violence. Despite the psychologist's testimony illustrating the depth of Garrett's psychological scars, it did not sway the jury from convicting him of first-degree murder, leading to his death sentence in September 1982. In the final days leading up to his scheduled execution, a remarkable intervention occurred. Pope John Paul II, advocating against the death penalty and suggesting the emergence of new evidence that could prove Garrett's innocence, appealed to the Texas Board of Appeals for clemency. This unprecedented move by the Pope highlighted the broader ethical debates surrounding the death penalty and raised questions about the justice system's capacity for error, especially in cases involving potentially mitigating circumstances like Garrett's mental health and abusive past. However, the Texas Board of Appeals, unmoved by the Pope's appeal and the potential for new exculpatory evidence, unanimously decided not to commute Garrett's sentence. This decision underscores the complexities of balancing justice for victims with the rights and circumstances of the accused, especially in capital punishment cases. Garrett's story, intertwined with the tragic murder of Sister Tadia Benz, remains a somber narrative exploring themes of mental health, trauma, the implications of the death penalty, and the ceaseless quest for truth and justice in the criminal justice system. Johnny Frank Garrett's execution on February 11, 1992, at the age of 28, marked a tragic end to a deeply controversial case. The murder of Sister Tadia Benz represented not only a heinous crime but also a case enveloped in doubt and debate, particularly concerning the justice system's rush to find and punish the perpetrator. The fervent desire to resolve such a shocking crime is understandable, yet the potential cost an innocent man's life casts a long shadow over the outcome of Garrett's case. 12 years after Garrett's death, Amarillo-based attorney Jesse Quackenbush embarked on a mission to uncover the truth about Garrett's innocence. Quackenbush presented new evidence that not only cast doubt on Garrett's guilt, but also highlighted the possibility of a wrongful execution. His investigations pointed to similarities between Sister Tadia Benz's murder and the murder of Narnie Box Bryson, occurring just months apart in the same area. Leoncio Perez Rueda, convicted of Bryson's murder, became a focal point of Quackenbush's efforts to link the two crimes, suggesting a potential miscarriage of justice in Garrett's conviction. The inherent irreversibility of the death penalty underlines the grave importance of absolute certainty in capital punishment cases. The suggestion that law enforcement and the judicial system might have prematurely concluded Garrett's guilt, coupled with the finality of his execution, underscores a chilling flaw in the justice system, that of irreversible error leading to the execution of potentially innocent individuals. As the years pass, the opportunity to uncover the full truth of Sister Tadia Benz's murder diminishes, with key figures like Leoncio Perez Rueda nearing the end of their lives. The mystery of who truly violated and murdered Sister Tadia may forever remain unresolved, leaving a lingering question mark over a case that has troubled many for decades. The perpetrator, capable of such a monstrous act, reminds us of the darkest potentials of human nature. Shifting focus to the serene setting of Fort Dodge, Iowa, in 1982, the story of Marvin and Ethel Brandon offers a contrasting glimpse into the American Halloween tradition. The Brandons' experience, from the joy of participating in the festive spirit to the unsettling visitation late on Halloween night, encapsulates the varied dimensions of this holiday, from community celebration to the unease that accompanies the unexpected. As we reflect on these stories, from the haunting to the heartwarming, we're reminded of the complex tapestry of human experiences that define our shared histories and mysteries. The peaceful expectation of a late group of trick-or-treaters was shattered for Marvin Brandon when he opened his door to a scene straight out of a nightmare. The masked figure standing before him, armed and emanating hatred, signaled an immediate and terrifying deviation from the Halloween festivities. This was no benign visitor. This was a threat to Marvin's life and the security of his home. Marvin's attempt to comply, under the assumption of facing an ordinary robbery, reflects a hope that cooperation might spare him and his wife Ethel from harm. Yet the mention of the safe, a well-guarded secret containing a significant portion of the Brandons' life savings, shifted the encounter from a potential burglary to a life-threatening situation. The masked intruder's knowledge of the safe suggested a personal breach, hinting that the attacker might be someone within their social or familial circle. The tragic outcome, with Marvin lunging in a desperate attempt to thwart the robbery and subsequently being shot, underscores the unpredictability and violence that can intrude upon even the most secure and serene lives. Ethel's distress and the subsequent loss of Marvin paint a stark picture of the aftermath of violent crime, leaving families to grapple with the reality of their loss amidst the remnants of the attack. The investigation into Marvin's murder, hampered by the lack of a clear description of the assailant and only a vague clue about the motive related to the safe, highlights the challenges law enforcement faces in solving such crimes. The suspicion that the killer might be someone close to the Brandons adds a layer of betrayal and shock to the already grievous event. Teresa Trueblood's reflection on the surreal and painful experience of returning to the scene emphasizes the deep emotional and psychological scars left on families by violent crime. The sight of blood, a stark indicator of the tragedy's reality, marks a moment of irrevocable change in the lives of the survivors. As the investigation stretched on with no immediate leads or arrests, the Brandon family and their community were left with unresolved grief and questions that might never find answers. The murder of Marvin Brandon, occurring amidst the backdrop of Halloween festivities, serves as a chilling reminder of the fragility of life and the shadows that can lurk behind familiar faces and seemingly secure doors. Ethel Brandon's decline after the murder of her husband Marvin epitomizes the profound, sometimes overlooked, impact of violent crime on the survivors. Her emotional and physical deterioration leading to her death a few months later paints a heart-wrenching picture of grief's capability to consume one's will to live. The loss, compounded by the absence of justice and closure, can leave families in a perpetual state of mourning and despair. Ethel's story is a stark reminder of the collateral damage inflicted by acts of violence, extending far beyond the immediate victims to those who love them. The reopening of the case in 2010, with the hope that modern forensic analysis could glean DNA evidence from the discarded pillowcase mask, represents a flicker of hope in the darkness for the Brandon family. However, the inability to extract such evidence is a testament to the challenges that time imposes on solving cold cases, adding another layer of frustration and helplessness to the family's quest for justice. The Brandon family's belief in knowing the identity of Marvin's killer, yet being stymied by a lack of evidence, underscores a painful reality many families facing unsolved crimes endure. The fear and resignation expressed by Teresa Trueblood reflect the complex dynamics that can hinder the pursuit of justice, including the fear of retribution and the emotional toll of confronting a suspected killer within one's own community. The chilling reminder that the killer continues to hide in plain sight, with not a single suspect officially named, serves as a grim warning of the dangers that can lurk beneath the surface of seemingly safe communities. It also highlights the importance of vigilance and caution, not only during festivities like Halloween but every day. Transitioning to the personal narrative of experiencing a strange incident before a Halloween night, the account adds another dimension to the holiday's potential for unsettling encounters. The encounter with a group of men taking pictures of a house, although seemingly benign at the moment, gains a sinister hue in the context of the narrative's themes of vulnerability and hidden threats. This story, like that of the Brandons, reminds us of the thin veil between normalcy and danger, urging a balance between celebrating life's festive moments and safeguarding against the unpredictable nature of human intentions. The sequence of events that unfolded around your home on Halloween night is unsettling, painting a picture of a night marked by more than just the usual holiday mischief. The inability of your cousin and stepbrother to unlock the door upon their late return, initially brushed off as drunken clumsiness, was the first hint of something amiss. The eventual discovery by your mother and a locksmith that a knife tip was lodged in the lock reveals a deliberate attempt to compromise the security of your home. This act, far from a harmless prank, suggests a more sinister intention. Your own experience that night, waking with a sense of anxiety and noticing a man-shaped shadow cast upon your window, adds a personal and terrifying dimension to the story. The initial dismissal of the shadow as nothing unusual underscores a common tendency to rationalize away fear, especially in the context of Halloween's eerie atmosphere. However, the subsequent discovery that window screens had been slashed, including one at your own bedroom window, validates your unease and indicates that the shadow you saw may not have been as benign as you hoped. The presence of the police and locksmith, along with the realization of the damaged lock and windows, casts the previous night's events in a grave light, shifting the narrative from a Halloween tale to a serious security breach. The involvement of law enforcement signifies the severity of the intrusion attempt, while the locksmith's role in extracting the knife tip from the lock symbolizes the restoration of safety measures. This incident, occurring amidst Halloween festivities, serves as a stark reminder of the potential for real danger to intrude upon our lives, even within the supposed safety of our homes. It also highlights the importance of remaining vigilant and taking precautions to secure our living spaces, particularly during times when the boundary between festive and frightening becomes blurred. The relief you felt upon learning where the knife tip ended up, though tempered by the violation of your home's security, underscores the complex mix of fear, relief, and heightened awareness that such an event can provoke. Story 14. Dwayne Smith's journey from Kirkwood, Missouri, to the depths of the ocean floor is a testament to how a change in environment can shape a person's destiny and passions. His transition from a Midwestern boy to a Navy corpsman, and eventually to a specialist in subaquatic crime scene investigation, showcases an extraordinary trajectory driven by his love for the aquatic world. After completing his service in the Navy, Dwayne's pursuit of knowledge led him to the Florida State University's underwater CSI program, where he mastered scuba diving, a skill that would define much of his career and life thereafter. His academic achievements in subnautica crime scene investigation further solidified his commitment to underwater exploration and research. This unique blend of interests and skills eventually led him to a significant role at the Aquarius Underwater Research Base, a beacon of marine research operated by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA. At Aquarius, Dwayne found himself at the intersection of technical maintenance and scientific discovery, contributing to the base's dual mission of ensuring operational safety and advancing marine science. His work in training Navy divers in saturation diving techniques speaks to his expertise and the trust placed in him by both his peers and the military trainees who looked up to him for guidance. However, the incident on May 5, 2009, underscores the inherent risks associated with deep-sea diving and underwater operations. While engaged in what was considered a routine task assisting trainees with the installation of a weigh station using an underwater jackhammer, Dwayne encountered a situation that necessitated his return to the Aquarius, leaving the trainees temporarily on their own. This decision, made in the unpredictable environment of the ocean depths, highlights the challenges and dangers that even the most experienced divers face. Dwayne Smith's story is a vivid illustration of human resilience, adaptability, and the relentless pursuit of passion. From the shores of Missouri to the coral reefs of the Florida Keys, his life journey encapsulates a profound connection to the water that shaped his career, challenges and contributions to underwater research and exploration. Dwayne Smith's tragic death highlights the inherent risks and unpredictability of deep-sea diving, even for the most experienced and skilled individuals. The investigation into his passing shed light on a series of unfortunate factors that aligned to create a fatal outcome. First, the failure of Dewey's closed-circuit rebreather due to hydraulic forces from the nearby use of a jackhammer underscores the delicate balance and reliance on equipment divers have in such extreme conditions. Equipment failure, especially for apparatus as critical as a rebreather, can swiftly turn a routine dive into a life-threatening situation. Second, the investigation's finding that Dewey might have grown too comfortable or complacent with his dives, to the extent of neglecting vital equipment indicators like the handset and heads-up display, speaks to a larger theme within any profession or skill: the danger of overconfidence. It suggests that familiarity did not breed caution in this instance, but rather a potentially fatal oversight. The third factor, Dewey's decision to return to the Aquarius alone, puts into perspective the importance of diving protocols, especially the buddy system, in ensuring safety. This solo decision, combined with the malfunction of his equipment, placed him in a perilously isolated situation without immediate aid or the ability to call for help, leading to hypoxia. Hypoxia, a condition marked by insufficient oxygen supply to the tissues, can swiftly incapacitate a person, leading to unconsciousness or worse, as in Dewey's case. The condition's impact on deep-sea divers and its rapid onset emphasize the critical need for continuous monitoring of oxygen levels and environmental conditions during dives. Dwayne Smith's death is a sobering reminder of the unforgiving nature of underwater environments and the paramount importance of safety measures, equipment maintenance, and adherence to diving protocols. It serves as a wake-up call to the diving community and those involved in underwater research and exploration to prioritize safety above all, to prevent such tragedies from occurring in the future. But Dewey's legacy, marked by his passion for the aquatic world and his contributions to underwater research, will endure as a reminder of the risks divers willingly face to advance our understanding of the oceans. Understanding the intricacies of deep-sea diving, including the reliance on specialized breathing mixes like Trimix, highlights the complex balance required to maintain diver safety in such extreme conditions. The shift from regular air to a mixture that includes helium underscores the lengths to which divers and their support teams go to mitigate the risks associated with deep underwater environments. However, the potential for equipment malfunction, as tragically demonstrated in the case of Dwayne Smith, serves as a stark reminder of the fine line between exploration and peril. Hypoxia's subtle onset poses a significant risk, especially in the context of diving, where the initial symptoms can easily be dismissed as minor discomforts or the expected toll of the environment. The progression from mild symptoms to severe cognitive impairments and disorientation can be rapid, leaving divers vulnerable to making life-threatening decisions, such as removing their oxygen supply. This gradual decline in awareness and judgment, culminating in acts of self-endangerment, underscores the critical importance of continuous monitoring in the buddy system during dives. Dwayne Smith's decision to return to the Aquarius alone, although made with years of experience behind him, tragically illustrates the unforeseen dangers that can arise in moments of vulnerability. His loss prompted a reevaluation of safety protocols and practices within the Aquarius program and the broader diving community, emphasizing the need for constant vigilance and adherence to safety measures, regardless of a diver's experience level. The donation of a Superlight 17 diving helmet to the History of Diving Museum in Islamorada, Florida, in memory of Dewey, serves as both a tribute to his passion for the ocean and a somber reminder of the inherent risks of underwater exploration. This gesture not only honors Dewey's contributions to marine research and his love for diving, but also reinforces the message that safety must always be the paramount concern in the pursuit of discovery. Dewey Smith's story, marked by dedication and tragedy, echoes through the diving world as a poignant reminder of the respect and caution the ocean demands. It emphasizes that the quest to uncover the mysteries of the deep must always be balanced with an unwavering commitment to the safety and well-being of those brave enough to explore it.